Okay, Chair, we're streaming live on YouTube, so I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group on Tuesday, the 8th of March 2022. I am your chair, Councillor Nick Hookway. Based on a decision of the Council to continue virtual meetings until the 11th of May 2022, I would like to remind both members and public attending or watching that this Council has delegated much of its decision-taking power to our senior officers. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded. Please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. Therefore, may I remind colleagues to be careful with their language and that the Code of Conduct applies throughout our meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent on an internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we are not able to reconvene after 15 minutes, this meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Good colleagues, please ensure that your microphone is muted when you're not speaking. This will help avoid any disturbance from background noises. Could you also please keep your points short and not interrupt when someone else is speaking? Should you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any member of the public can view the agenda by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you have confirmed that you're present, please mute your microphone again. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. So start with yourself, Chair, Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott. I see Councillor Arnott has just joined us. Councillor Arnott.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Hayward. Councillor Ledger. Councillor Rowland.
Present, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desarim.
Present, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Whibley. Councillor Chris White. And from Exmouth Town Council, Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Present, Sarah.
Thank you. And Councillor Gazzard.
Present, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, public speaking. There are no members of the public registered to speak. Right. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of February 2022, pages 3 to 7. Do any members of the committee have comments on the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of February 2022? If so, please raise your electronic hand. Councillor Ollie Davey.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to include towards the end of the meeting when we spoke to Jerry, I seem to recall asking a question about connecting the seafront and the town, which he had been instrumental with in Stranraer. And I compared Stranraer and Exmouth because I think we have a similar problem here in connecting the seafront and the town. And Jerry made an interesting comment about that, I think, to do with traffic management. And we talked about one-way systems, which he said had been initially unpopular. I just didn't see any of that minuted. And I thought that was quite an important point, that possibly for us, the key is going to be to look at traffic management. We then went on to discuss the fact it's Devon County Council here would be the people to negotiate with for that. And Jerry pointed out, of course, he was a unitary authority in Dumfries and Galloway, so didn't have that problem. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. So are you insisting that that goes back into the minutes?
I'm not insisting. I was hoping that it would be accepted that it might be added to the minutes.
Okay, well, we'll add that to the minutes. Councillor Young?
Thank you, Chair. In the minutes, it mentions about cycle racks. I would like to expand on that, whether now or later on, but I'd like to bring that subject up sometime today. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Right, so we'll have the minutes amended and represented at the next meeting. Okay, right. Are there any other comments on the minutes? I have seen any other hands. Right, okay, right, okay. So moving on to agenda item 3, apologies. So do we have any apologies received, please, Sarah?
We don't have any apologies from any of the members, Chair, but we do have apologies from Peter Gilpin from LED.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Okay, Councillor Young, your hand is still up. Is that a legacy hand or you? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, moving on then to agenda item 5, a verbal update on the temporary uses. I will ask Officer Jerry Mills to present this update. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short update, as it's been relatively recent, just a matter of a few weeks ago since we last met. So I'll just take you through the various bits and pieces. We didn't get a lot of interest initially in the part of the advert for the Queen's Drive space, which we had then undertook to remarket, and thanks to Caitlin Davies' efforts, that has paid off dividends. Caitlin has also chased up leads that have been passed to us by yourself, Chair. Just to let you know, the Queen's Drive fitness space tenders were assessed yesterday, and we're pleased to advise, subject to contract, that LED will be seeking to provide activities of the following nature, and I'll just give you the list. It's a trampoline zone, water walkers, body zorbs, and Zoom balls. And I have to confess, I don't know what all of those are, but I'm sure they're lots of fun. The remaining food tender will be scheduled for tender assessment on the 14th of March, and our legal team have been instructed to issue leases for Pitch 1 to Kenneford Farm, the bar to LED, Pitch 4 to Moore's Pasties, Pitch 2 to Shakers, subject to a little bit of discussion there, and obviously everybody agreeing to the heads of terms. And you're aware, obviously, that Funders Own, the fun fair, will be providing various rides over this season. The Big Bear Coffee Company, they are now going to take a unit in town, so very, very good to see that they're actually going to take up a residency there. Planning consent is still to be determined for the temporary uses becoming permanent. And just to advise all members that the Queen's Drive space will be closed for maintenance from yesterday. That's the 7th of March for 3 weeks, and that's to allow us to just get everything ready. The new furniture is scheduled for the week beginning the 28th of the 3rd, and you'll recall, I'm sure, Chair, that we did outline that this was subject to grant aid, so we're under a bit of a time pressure there. Our plan is to open the space for the season for the 1st of April. In the meantime, and I appreciate that not everybody gets to read my diary, it is available to you all, but I have been networking and taking calls and emails from various interest groups, including Jeff Skinner from the Community Association, which I've scheduled a meeting for in April, the Town Council, which Lisa has kindly organised. We're just trying to tee up dates. Also with Coastwatch, and that will be later this week. We're engaging now with the rollout of the culture strategy on the 18th of the 3rd. I've had very helpful communications from the rowing club and also from Timelines. And again, we're just trying to tee up those meetings. So that gives you a flavour of the sort of activity that we've been engaged in since we last spoke. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Jerry. You've clearly been very busy. And also many thanks to Caitlin for her hard work with the event space and the fitness area. Right, so first of all, I'll ask, are there any non-members that wish to speak? I can't see any hands up from anybody else. So we'll go into the committee then. And Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you for that update, Jerry. You've done lots of work in a very short period of time, and it's really pleasing to see that things are gaining momentum. And I'm really pleased what you said about the LED with the fitness centre. That's good news as well. So crack on, and well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jerry. You were covering so much in such a short space of time. I couldn't write all my notes down quickly enough.
Oh, sorry.
But no. I mean, it was in a way, it's a backhanded compliment to how much you've achieved and how much you've covered in that space of time. So thank you. Good news about the fitness space and LED. My question was, and I'm sorry if you mentioned it in what you were saying, was how long that agreement's for?
For up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years. Okay.
Up to 2 years, sorry.
2 years.
Yes, 2 years. Yes, sorry. Just.
Thanks. And that's still subject to heads of terms, is it? Or is that?
Yes. Yeah.
All
subject to the heads of terms being agreed and signed off.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brewster Sarum, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It is very good news, as people have commented on, about the LED. I'm wondering, Chair, perhaps I asked this question to you, whether this LED will form part of your the fitness strategy that you're looking at in terms of how they're going to manage the site. We've obviously just heard that they've got a 2-year agreement, so I'm wondering whether or not how you will put that into the our fitness strategy. If you can elaborate, if you have the opportunity, Chair. Thank you.
Well, I think the short answer to that question is yes, but I will leave that to officers who are doing the leisure strategy. It's the simple answer, but it's only been confirmed this week, so early days, I think, Councillor Sarum, early days, but short answer is yes. Is that okay? Right,
yes,
good.
That's fine. Excellent. No, thank you.
Good. Councillor Paul Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Yeah, great report. Very much welcome this. One question I have is on there's huge demand for parking in that area. Are we any closer, Chair, through any of the officers, to improving our signage around that area, to be directing people to the very quiet Mayor Road car park across the road? A few yards up the road. I think it's important because I think we've had quite a few letters in the Exmouth Journal recently complaining about the lack of parking, and I think it's important that visitors are informed where they are, so people aren't just driving around harming the environment, not knowing where to park effectively. So it's a question that councillors on this group have been asking for a long time. And it'd be really good to see some progress on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tim, would you like to answer that one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Jack. It's probably unfair asking Jerry to respond on this one because it's before his time.
Yes,
but yes, so it was raised initially by the delivery group. I think it's probably this time last year. It was then picked up between officers with Andrew Ennis, the relevant service lead. I know that Andrew had a number of discussions with Devon County because, there were two issues. There's a signage on our land directing people to other car parks, but there's also the signposts on the highway. I can, so it was picked up with Andrew last year. I can take it away as an action from this meeting for Jerry and I to arrange to sit down with Andrew and get sort of a comprehensive update on what has been done and what is still to do, and perhaps bring a specific update back to the next meeting, if that's okay.
Yes, please. That would be very helpful.
But I know that the discussion certainly last year did take place. So
okay, yes. Well, we need to follow that up and have some action. Okay, thank you, Tim. Very much. Councillor Megan Armstrong, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jerry, excuse me if I've overlooked this somewhere, but how, if we're giving certain of these spaces for 2 years for temporary uses, I'm just wondering, and you may cover this in the next item, I don't know, how does that fit with the long-term usage and the final usage? Are we just assuming that the final usage won't be in place within 2 years? I'm just a bit confused about that. If somebody can clarify, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, happy to clarify. Could I just apologise? It's for 2 seasons that we're offering to LED. So that is this season and the summer season for next year. Looking at the timeline, which I will cover off in the next item, I have no preconceptions about how the space is going to be used. There could be a fitness offering. That will be a decision that I hope that we will get to whenever we get the group to reach a consensus on the way forward. So I'm as open-minded as anyone else in terms of how that space may or may not look, but I have no particular bailiwick that says it must have this or it must have that. Fitness could be part of it. Fitness can also be provided elsewhere.
Yeah, well, yeah. Sorry, Chair. Can I just come back on that?
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
yes.
It's not about particular. It's not about particular things being there. It's about the overall scheme. And as you say, you may well cover this in the next item. It's the overall scheme and the long-term vision for that area. Because I know at one particular previous meeting, I know that we were talking. I was talking to Tim about, you know, how the long term was going to be sorted, and whether we were going to be going back to some of the original plans that were presented to council a few years ago. So it's that kind of, I'm just wondering how it all fits together, and I'll wait for the next item, and probably things will get answered. But I'm not talking about specific facilities. I'm talking about the long term and what the long term time scale is. So I'll wait for the next item. That's probably best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tim, did you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, thank you. Just very briefly, as my name was mentioned. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Armstrong, just to assure you, so Jerry shortly will be talking you through next steps. And I think through that, you will see that this is a process, a journey. We were very conscious that what we didn't want to do was in any way grant agreements that sort of then predetermined any future use. So by allowing for next summer as well, it ticked the box of enabling us to attract interest. Previously, where it was just for this season, we hadn't attracted any interest, so it ticks that box. But at the same time, through to the end of next September, doesn't in any way impact on the longer term proposals for that site, whatever they might be. But so I wanted to come in because my name was specifically mentioned. But Jerry will. I don't want to steal Jerry's thunder. Jerry will be talking you through certainly the early stages of what happens next within the next agenda item.
Thank you, and sorry, Chair, if I jumped in there too early, but thank you. Okay.
Oh, that's quite all right. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Young, please. Jeff.
Thank you. Following on from Councillor Miller's comments about car parks, it's very important that we get the signage right now because there's a price differential between some of these car parks, and we need to be directing traffic to the less expensive car parks. Also about parking of bikes. I'm glad to see that we're having a cycle rack at Queen's Drive. There has been some instance at LED where bikes have been locked in the cycle racks and have been stolen. And I'm told that there's no security cameras that cover that area, so the police can't action any issues there. Now, cycle racks need to be in a fairly prominent position, and if possible, if they can be covered by security cameras, which if there's an incident, then the police can then view that. Bikes, as you know, are fairly expensive. There's a lot of electric bikes now, and it's fairly imperative that we have secure and safe cycle racks around Exmouth. And on another point, there is no cycle racks at the ocean. I had to lock my bike up the other day against a drain pipe, so there's not many drain pipes, so that's going to be an issue. So we need to consider cycle racks a lot more than we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's some very interesting and relevant comments there. Yes, electric bikes are getting expensive, aren't you? Jerry, did you want to come back on that point at all?
Not particularly, Chair.
Okay,
I mean,
right.
I will note that just as an issue because it's one that we'll put in the mix.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Paul Miller again, please.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me back in. I just wanted to add to Councillor Young's comments. I was also aware of the issue with cycling security. I'm a cyclist myself. The problem at LED, the leisure centre, is that the cycle rack is out of sight of the reception, and therefore it's not prominent. Nobody can keep an eye on it. But there is, as Councillor Young has alluded to, there is a significant demand, in my view, in Exmouth for more secure parking areas for bikes. In Plymouth, they have a great scheme where they have secure cycle lockers for people that you pay to secure your bike in for a number of hours, sometimes in a more long-term way. And I've always believed, or long believed in the last couple of years, that the council should be looking to develop that, because it's going to take cars off the road. It's going to make cyclists more confident, such as myself, to actually leave a bicycle somewhere for longer periods of time without worrying that it's going to be stolen. You've got to remember, I mean, years ago, bikes might not have been worth as much, but now more and more people, including myself, are going down the electric bike route, and these electric bikes are worth sometimes as much as a car, a cheap second-hand car. Maybe not now because of inflation, but certainly electric bikes can be upward of £1,000, £2,000. It's very important that within our strategy, which I know we're going to come on to next, and in Queen's Drive, that we don't just have cycle racks, but we consider even more secure areas in which residents, particularly that live here, can cycle down to the seafront, park their bike, and know that it's going to be safe for a number of hours without having to worry. So it's a big issue that Councillor Young has raised, and it would be great if Jerry and Tim and other officers could go away and look at examples in other authorities, and maybe come back with a proposal at some point, because I think it would work really well, especially in a town like Exmouth, which is very hilly. And if you're coming down to the beach from a place where I live, such as Brixington, it's not easy to walk. It's not. I mean, it's fine, but it takes a long time. It's not pleasant to walk back, because Exmouth has not been developed in a way that is conducive to people that walk around. It's not a walkable neighbourhood, as I would describe, but it is good to cycle around, especially if you've got an electric bike. So that's just something I'll leave with you, Chair, and the officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Jerry, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, Chair, if I may, just very briefly. Caitlin has just advised me that it's been proving very, very difficult to get a cycle rack that we can easily fit into the Queen's Drive space, and using the Welcome Back Fund, that is to get the cycle rack constructed and installed with the deadline constraint of the grant. So it is something that we have been looking at quite proactively. I just want to make sure that members were aware.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Don't see any other hands. Now, before we move on to Jerry's next part, I have realised that I have forgotten that we must do the declarations of interest. So, Sarah, can you hand that over to you, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So yourself, Chair, Councillor Hookway.
Yes, personal declaration. I was chair of Save Exmouth Seafront, no longer involved and not predetermined to any outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott. Councillor Arnott.
I'll do it off mute. None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Exmouth councillor, otherwise none.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Just a personal interest that I'm also an Exmouth town councillor.
Thank you. Councillor de Salem.
Thanks, Sarah. Likewise, Exmouth Town Councillor, and also as some of our colleagues here present, I sit on the planning committee, and obviously I'm not predetermined in any way when any further application comes before us. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
None.
Thank you. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
An Exmouth Town Councillor. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And Councillor Gazzard.
Yes, Sarah, a personal interest, Exmouth Town Councillor, and I also sit on East Evans Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah Fudge. Okay, moving on now to agenda item 6, the next steps for placemaking in Exmouth. I'll hand over to Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Chair. If you just bear with me, hopefully the magic of Zoom will work. Can you see that item?
Yes.
Just
yes,
a single page. Okay, Chair, with your permission, I'll just talk freely, if I may. We have been chewing this one over for a little while and listening very, very carefully and listening back to the minutes of previous meetings and the engagement that I've had with yourself, with the leader and with members of the group. I think I have a suggestion for you, and I'll talk you through to the point where I'm making that suggestion or that proposal for you, and hopefully we can have a meeting of minds here. So the first thing I would have to say is I think we need to get an initial way forward, and the first rule of this has to be, for me, is that I have absolutely no preconceptions of what this space will look like, but that will be driven by the group, by the delivery group. I'm very, very clear that we have common ground, Chair, and that common ground is very, very simple, and sometimes the best things are simple. And that common ground is do something, and as I've written there, maybe even do something now. And I don't think there's anyone that disagrees with that I have spoken to date. So I'm going to ask some open questions, and I'm not expecting members to come up with answers at this meeting. And there are 3 very, very simple questions, and they follow on from a meeting that you had in March of a year ago, and Tim Child asked similar questions. We all have our different way of asking things, so I'll just do it my way at the minute, if that's okay. So what I need to explore with you is, what will successful place and prosperity in Exmouth look and feel like? Okay, it's food for thought. I want to get your creative juices flowing here, folks, okay? The second question is, what do you as representatives of local people and local people want to see? What will attract people to come to Exmouth? And the third question is, what do visitors want to see and what will attract them? Now, in order to explore this with you, I am suggesting to you, if the group are agreeable, that we would hold a meeting in a workshop style. Okay, so yep, you're all going to have to do lots and lots of work. Okay, and we'll divide you up into groups. We haven't set a rigid format for this. I think we'll be driven by events on the day, but it's to hold a workshop meeting on the 6th of April, because there's no council meetings that day that I'm aware of, and I'm also suggesting the evening time. And at that meeting, we will try to address the questions that I have just posed to you. So I'm hoping that people will have time to have a think about what they'd like to see happen. In addition to that, Chair, if I may just take down the current document, because Councillor Armstrong did ask about timelines, and you just beat me to the punch on that one. So if you bear with me, I'll try and just pop that up for you. Again, if the magic of Zoom works. Okay, you should be able to see that now. Yep. Okay. So just reading left to right. Okay. And you'll note the date at the bottom of each box. Okay. So what I'm hoping we can get to is a consensus on what placemaking in Exmouth will look like in our roundtable discussion workshop. Okay. So, and I'm proposing that we would also use Chatham House rules with that. What we're trying to get from you here is the strategic definition so that we can then begin to prepare a brief. And I'm hoping that we can do that by April of this year. The next step will be consultation with the group on the themes and characteristics, okay, that are agreed, with a recommendation to go to Cabinet. Now, we will have to agree those themes and characteristics at our April meeting. And I would propose then that if the group are agreeable, we would go with a recommendation to Cabinet to go to consultation in May 22. The consultation, we have, in dialogue with our comms team, have recommended an 8-week consultation. That will cover visitors to the area as well as local people. That will cover time when people are off school and maybe are more focused on activities and things to do. So there's a lot more thought than just picking dates out of a calendar. So we would hope that the Cabinet would approve the consultation to the public over the summer and publish the design concepts and consult, and that would be over a period of about 8 weeks. The findings of the consultation would then be delivered or presented, to the delivery group. And we would recommend, we hope, to recommend to Cabinet to give a clear recommendation for terms of reference for what I'm going to call Exmouth placemaking, to interpret the findings and come up with a number of options and business cases, and that is by August. Okay, and by September, this is an ambitious timetable, I know, and we're all going to be under quite a bit of pressure with it. I'm hoping that Cabinet would approve the terms of reference for us to go forward for September, or in September 22. So that's a very, very tight timetable. I'm acutely aware that that's a tight timetable, Chair. My suggestion to you is, if the group think that this is a good idea, I think we would move very, very quickly to get a facility booked for the 6th of April. And I would hope that we would get everyone there. And I'm trying to give you almost a month's notice of that. So I hope no one thinks I've just plucked these dates out of thin air. I have actually spent quite a bit of time trying to get them to where they are. Chair, that is it from me. I'm really happy to take questions, and I can put up the previous document if it makes life any easier for people so they don't have to do everything from memory.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, so over to members. Can't see any members outside the group, so we'll go to Councillor Bruce Desarum, please. Bruce.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. And may I say, Jerry, that's actually magnificent. I'm very pleased to see that you've put forward some good questions. My question is, how will we convince local people that we're not rerunning a previous consultation? Because as the Chair is well aware, there has been an awful lot of debate about this entire site over many years, even before I was on the council. And I think it's really important that somehow we put across the message that we are actually now looking to get some positive traction out of it. And as I think the leader himself said at the last meeting, we need to convince the public, I think, that we're not going to go over old ground, but we really are going to come up with something. And I think it's trust and confidence. It's a bit like when we made the neighbourhood plan. People said, well, why are you making an Exmouth neighbourhood plan? And we said, because we want to give your views the interpretation they deserve. And I think, Jerry, I just wonder how you and the team are going to do this excellent job. I know you've put the 3 questions: what will successful look like, what will locally, but I wonder how are we going to convince them that we're not hearing the same message that we've heard in the past? So that's really my question, Jerry, and I'd be grateful if you could offer some reassurance this morning. Thank you so much.
Sure. So in Chair, in approaching this, I mean, I think it's very, very, very important that we come to the table with no preconceptions, and that is the line that I have taken right the way through. In terms of how we convince the public, in discussion with the comms team, we put together a comms package which will cover quite a number of channels of distribution, and I will bring that obviously to the group so they're aware of the comms that are going to take place. The idea being that we try and get responses and participation in our with our consultation from people from all walks of life, residents and non-residents, all age groups, and what have you. So I think really I think we have something here as well in regard to the do something, and I think that there's a renewed impetus with the group, and also a desire there from the public to see us move this forward. And I think that if we can keep the momentum building, I think that the public will give us feedback on what the proposals are.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thanks,
I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't mean to cut over you. Thank you for your question. Tim, you have your hand up. Did you want to add anything else, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Really just around sort of expectations and just a bit more of an explanation around what the outcomes will potentially be in September. So up until September, and the timeline that Jerry displayed on screen just now, we are focusing on themes, characteristics, and terms of reference around what is to be delivered within the placemaking theme within Exmouth. And that's the key element at this stage, because at this stage there are a whole range of different views, and we need those views to come together into something that we can move forward with. But what the September report to Cabinet is not envisaged to be is the actual outputs. So, for example, and I'm sure Jerry can probably explain this better than I can, and Joe might want to come back in after I finish speaking, but this isn't so the themes, the characteristics, terms of reference may include around the importance of play and fitness. So that will come out if that's the case, but it won't necessarily in September conclude exactly what that space is to be, where it is to be, and how it is to be delivered. So those elements will then come on into sort of a subsequent phase following September, where the projects will be worked up in detail, using external consultancy input where needed. But we can't do that at this stage until we understand what the themes, characteristics, and sort of overall terms of reference are. So hopefully by explaining that, I've clarified rather than confusing. But Jerry, did you want to sort of come back in on that, or shall we open back out to members?
No, Tim, thank you. Sorry, Chair. Tim, thank you. Very, very well explained. Yes, the idea is that the group will shape the terms of reference for us to be able to appoint a design team going forward. They will produce a number of options, taking into account the input of the group and the consultation, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you, Tim, as well. Right, okay, Councillor Paul Miller, you're outside the group. You better go now. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Chair. For a consultation to be meaningful, it will mean that whatever's presented, councillors will have to be open to change their minds on the basis of public feedback. That hasn't been the case in the past, has it, Chair? It's been, in the past, and this is what I think has angered the public in Exmouth. The consultation has been presented as what's going to happen. And I don't think local residents have felt confident that their views have been listened to whatsoever. And they felt that basically the council would go ahead with what they planned regardless. So I think with this consultation, it has to be done very, very carefully to win the trust of local people. And I therefore have to ask, when, and this question to Jerry, it might be a question to you, Chair, when the idea is, or ideas are presented, I guess that's the question. Will the public be presented with options, slightly different options for going forward, or will they be presented with one idea that the delivery group has come up with to comment on? Because I'm a big believer in that I think what the public will want as 2 or 3 options of the way forward, 2 or 3 intelligent options on the way forward for that site. I'm just worried that if we do what we did before, which was to present one idea with no alternatives, it's not going to win the trust of the local public who have seen this debate rage on for far too long now, and really would like to see, as Jerry has said in his report, let's do something now. Basically, we need to get on with it. And I'm really excited, actually, mightily relieved, but also really excited by the timeline that Jerry's put in place for us. So thanks, Jerry, for all you're doing for Exmouth. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Aurora Bailey, please. Aurora.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say thank you very much, Jerry. You've worked really hard, and I'm excited as well. I think it's going to actually move on. Just going back to the consultation, we did have Hemingway's consultation, which we paid a lot of money for. And I know we're not going back on things, but that consultation surely will have some relevance to this, because we paid out the money for it. The public were made aware that there wasn't a big turnout on that day. And surely it has some relevance to this, otherwise it's done for nothing. I know we're moving on, and I'm the first person who wants to move on. And also, I'd just like to hopefully make sure that the play park will still be in this. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Aurora. Okay, right. Okay, so I think our next speaker will be, we'll be better to do Councillor Arnott, as English leader of the council. Councillor Arnott, please.
Oh, no, don't let me jump the queue, Nick. Chair, please put me in my place. So.
All right. Okay, you'll be last then. Right. So, Councillor Jack Rowland, please. Jack.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Arnott, for saying what you just said. Thank you, Jerry. I was really pleased to see this ambitious timescale that's involved, because I think it's really important to come up with a timescale which will really focus minds. And I think it's also important. Tim actually answered part of the question that I had, because obviously by the autumn we will be already into the budget planning exercise for the next financial year. And no doubt that will fall out of the back end of this initial consultation will maybe some budget requirements for the next steps. So I think it's important to have that in place, so we know exactly what budget requests might be coming through by the autumn as well. So I actually welcome this. I haven't got any preconceived ideas. I'm not an Exmouth resident, because I actually live at the far end of the district anyway. But I hope, because I'm now part of this delivery group through my finance portfolio holding, that sometimes a fresh pair of eyes looking at a subject from outside of a town can actually be of benefit. So I hope that's what I can bring to the group anyway to help. So thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Councillor Ollie Davey, please. Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. I can't see Councillor Young's hand up, actually. I thought he was in front of me. But anyway, I just wanted to ask Jerry who he envisages attending the meeting on the 6th of April. I just wondered, I might have missed this, but I just wondered how many people were going to be involved and what sort of format he envisages. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry.
Yeah, happy to come in on that. This would be a meeting of the delivery group, but it would be held in a workshop style. So we would have breakout areas so the groups can get together, get focused, and then feedback to the group as a whole. So it would just be members of the delivery group. I wouldn't envisage at this stage inviting anyone external.
Okay, right. Okay, Councillor Young, Jeff, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's not only Exmouth residents that will benefit from this, but we need to include people from Exeter and people from most of East Devon. I don't live in Exmouth, but I consider Exmouth as my seaside destination when I go for an ice cream and a walk. So we need to widen the scope to a certain extent. I'm wondering how this would dovetail into our local plan. Also concerned that we've had consultations after consultations since 2012, and it's going to have, we're going to have some careful comms to be able to put this another consultation up front, but we need to be explaining that this is building on what we have already done, and we need to, in view of the last couple of years, we need to reconsider a number of issues. And I presume that this is for most of Exmouth and not just Queen's Drive, because that would make far more sense. Now, Exmouth Seafront and the town centre and the areas around it are all one of the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. That's a good point. Okay, so Megan, please, Councillor Megan Armstrong.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I'm following on from Jeff, because I just wanted clarity on that, and I'd be grateful if either Tim or Jerry could reply about, is this just for Queen's Drive, or are we talking about the town centre, as we mentioned at the previous meeting? So that was my main question. I'd just like an answer to that, really, so that we know what the aims of these the future meeting, for example, in April, are going to be. And yeah, I think that's all for now. I may need to come back in a bit, depending on what anybody else says. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think we must acknowledge that we must sort out Queen's Drive. We must get on with that. But there are clearly opportunities within the town of Exmouth that we have discussed before, and we need to look at those as well. And we'll have a look at that, I think, when we do the workshop.
Chair, sorry to interrupt, but would it be possible for Jerry to answer that question? I'd just like to know his mind about
yes, okay,
that.
yes.
I know it came out quite strongly at the last meeting that we shouldn't just be looking at Queen's Drive, we should be looking at the town as well. So I just needed some clarity, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Jerry, do you want to reply?
Yes, Chair, absolutely. And once again, Megan has stolen my thunder, because it absolutely has to be placemaking for the whole of Exmouth, and that is what I'm committed to. Tim is at pains to point out to me that Queen's Drive is part of your role. It isn't exclusively your role. You will be dealing with all things Exmouth, as we will through the group. So I'm very positive that thinking is now very much embedded with members at the meeting. Because going forward, this will be about placemaking in Exmouth.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Tim, did you want to come back on that as well?
Yes, thank you, Chair. What Jerry has said is absolutely right. Now, of course, the next meeting we're looking at, as Jerry's spoken about for April, would be an in-person interactive workshop, but the outcomes of that workshop would then be reported back fully publicly through to the next delivery group meeting, which takes place, I think it's in May. But I suspect, and that's preempting things here, but I suspect that part of the discussion at the April workshop will be actually the need to take back formally through the delivery group a recommendation to Cabinet that the terms of reference are widened to include what Joey has just said, so placemaking projects across Exmouth. So I think that the anticipation is that the agenda for the early May delivery group meeting would be an item on terms of reference, which would then need to be reported back and approved by Cabinet. And the purpose of the new terms of reference would be to cover all of those issues that Megan that you've just raised, and others.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, Councillor Gazzard, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I was having a trouble unmuting. Yeah, like everybody else, I'm really pleased that we are going to be moving forward and taking positive undertakings to see what we can do. I think there's not anybody on this delivery group that wants to see us move forward, and hopefully sooner rather than a lot later. And I'm really pleased what I've heard from Jerry today, and in particular the assurance that he's given us about that. It's also going to include the town as well, because that's really important, not just the seafront. But I think, Councillor Bruce Tesaro asked a question, and I fully understand the question that he answered. But I think we can keep looking back as far as we like for all the previous consultations that have gone on, but we have to look forward now. And I'm sure we will understand that we've been in a very difficult place for the last 3 years, so we haven't been able to do very much at all, apart from doing Zoom meetings, and it's very difficult to move forward on Zoom for the future of Exmouth rather than trying to do it face to face. I'm really, as I said, I'm really pleased that there is a head of steam, as I'll call it, to push Queen's Drive forward and regeneration in the town centre. I've lost my thread of my thought now. Oh yes, I'm really pleased that Jerry has spoken to our town clerk and at Exmouth Town Council, and he will be coming to a meeting at some point to talk to the town councillors. And I think this is a very important point. Is yes, some of us on here are dual-hatted councillors, but it's really important that the district council take the town council with them on this, and there's got to be consultation discussions with the town council, not just leaving it to the members that are here that represent the town council, but to come and talk to the 25 town councillors. Hopefully we're going to get back to face and listen to what other councillors have to say on this very important issue. So and I'm sure that will be the case. I'm very confident that that is the role that Jerry will play, and that's what the role East Devon want to play, because you need to take the town council with you, and you need to have the input of the town council. On the question of what Councillor Miller says, yes, I understand that as well, Councillor Miller, what you're saying, but I'm sure this workshop will come up with more than one idea, and there's an assumption on my part is that whatever ideas come up will be looked at, and it won't. And forgive me if I've got it wrong. It won't be the district council saying we're going to have a hotel again, because a hotel has come up again, or you're going to have this. You need to have. You've got to take the people of Exmouth with you, and I'm sure the council have learned from what's happened in the past and will take the people with them. So I'm really pleased with the way that things are moving forward, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think that's some very sensible comments there. Okay, Councillor Paul Miller, is that a legacy hand or is that
a new one? Thanks, Chair. Just in response to what Jerry said about the this workshop being attended only by the delivery group, I do think the invitation should be extended to Exmouth councillors. I'm the only Exmouth councillor under the age of 40, and I think it's really important to get. I don't think it's much to ask to extend the invitation to the other Exmouth councillors that don't happen to sit on this delivery group. It's an historic opportunity for the Exmouth councillors, whether they're on this group or not, try to shape the ideas going forward. I'd certainly like to be there in person in April. So I'd be pleased with the invitation. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Jerry, did you want to come back on that?
Yes, Chair, if I may. The plan, Councillor Miller, really was to start with the group and then to roll out a series of meetings I alluded to in the update that I gave you. So Lisa has very kindly put the wheels in motion for me to come to speak to the Exmouth Town Council. I'll also be meeting with all of the other interest groups, and we will be holding further workshops, which can be attended by anyone or open to the public or by select invite. I'm happy to be driven by you on this one. My gut feeling is that I think it would be good if we as a group went forward with a consensus view that we could present. And again, this is not deciding on what's going to take place there. That's quite a ways away. This is about coming up with terms of reference for a brief for what we might be doing at Queen's Drive and indeed right across the whole of Exmouth. So please don't think that this is hey, we've decided this and either jump on board or go away. That is absolutely not going to win friends or influence people in any way. So, I mean, we are going to be meeting with interested groups and stakeholders, and that's going to be an ongoing process. So but please don't think that there's any exclusivity trying to be created here. I want this to be a really, really major piece of engagement with the public, with all the stakeholder groups, and that's why I've been at pains to try and reach out to them to make sure that, one, they know who I am, and two, that I will be coming to talk to them in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. That's very clear. Thank you. Councillor Brewster-Sarum.
Stay very briefly, Chair. Is it possible to have this workshop in Exmouth, either in the town council or at Ocean or somewhere in Exmouth, so that obviously members can attend very easily and very quickly? That's the only suggestion that I make for you, Chair, if it's received. Thank you.
The answer is yes. Have you sorted out? Yes. Have you sorted out the venue yet, Jerry?
Chair, I was just waiting for a nod from the group today. The proposal is that it would take place on the 6th of April because we have nothing in the master diary on that day, and it would be in the evening time, probably from about 6 o'clock onwards. Again, I'll be driven by members of the group if they think that that's an unsuitable date, and we'll go and seek a fresh one. It would be a face-to-face meeting, and we have had early doors discussion with Ocean because they have a great facility there to allow us to have breakout spaces and things like that.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, Councillor Paul Arnott, please.
Thank you, Chair. Having humbly waited my turn, I've nearly forgot what I was going to say in the first place. But so picking up on a couple of things, obviously I'm delighted again by this whole process and by the response of members today as well. I think it was clear from the absolute onset of the process of even and sorry to put this on Jerry, but finding Jerry, finding Nemo, finding Jerry, this was always going to be about town and seafront, always was and has to be and has to continue to be. It's a step change. So that, going back to the point that is being made repeatedly and understandably, looking back at previous consultation work, this has a different spec, really. I think the point that Councillor Gaznard was making is really important as well, which goes with Councillor Young's it's about how we communicate this new process. It is absolutely true to say, as Steve was saying, that for 2 years, I mean, literally 2 years now, this whole thing has had to be in abeyance one way or the other for every reason, democratic, financial, whatever. And we have, I think, really well crisis managed our way through 2 summer seasons on the seafront. Had to say, absolutely delighted that despite the ongoing opinion regularly offered of one group on the council that the what will now continue as the fitness area should be a car park, we've got LED in there for the next 2 seasons. So that's really good to see. But yes, moving forward, it will be about how to communicate it. I have a lot of sympathy with what Councillor Miller has said about widening the group to other Exmouth members. I think what I would say is, and it's just one view, is not quite yet. We, as this group, have to finish this piece of work, which, to be honest, we've only just started. We've only just turned the exam paper over. I think we need to make that little bit more progress and then bring people in. I think it could be quite difficult otherwise. It could get a bit, rather a large group. It would be hard to get focus on that. We'll have a limited time down there. I think the other thing as part of the comms, quite apart from the fact that, yes, there's been of course, Jerry and Tim are familiar with the Hemingway work and other work that was done. So that wasn't wasted. That's been banked. That's part of their understanding. It is now 2 years on from the pandemic. But I think critically, and we need to put this in our comms, this group is owned by Exmouth. It isn't owned by, as previous things were chaired by people who were not from Exmouth. And although I'm delighted to sit on it as leader, and Jack as a finance portfolio holder, and both of us being from exactly the other end of the district, we sit here as a sort of benevolent force, I hope. But I think the thrust of the opinions coming from the Exmouth members on this committee will be the ones that will be, most crucial. So there are differences, distinct differences between the previous process and this, is all I'd say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I agree with your comments. I think we have to meet as a delivery group on the 6th of March, otherwise it would become unmanageable. And then we can put up our ideas and then see what people think about them. We have a tight time schedule and we need to be very focused on getting that together. Right, okay. So with that, there are no further speakers. I can see that draws our meeting to a close, and I thank everybody for attending, and I look forward to seeing you on the 6th of, Jerry, the 6th of March. Jerry, yes, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm it's 6th of April and it will be at 1800 hours or 6 o'clock in the evening, yeah?
So, yes, 6th of April. Okay, right, okay. Yeah, so that brings our meeting to an end, and I would like to thank everyone for their attendance. May I remind everyone that until the supporting officer confirms that we're no longer live, your comments will